So human design is so complex, and we could give you information about your chart for years and years and still not be done. There's so much to it. But Ra Uru Hu, who was the founder of human design, really stressed the importance of, it's not about how much you know, it's about how much you use the information to actually change your life. So the first thing to really understand is how to master your energy type. Whether you're a manifestor, manifesting generator, projector, or reflector, that really is, if you don't do anything else with your human design journey, the most life-changing thing you can do is really learning how to master living as your energy type. So the Mastering Your Energy Type videos are the sort of very first place to start, and what they are essentially is, if I was doing a reading for you, that would be the first half of our reading. That would be about half hour, 45 minutes of everything that it is to be you, because your soul chose to come back as that energy type in order to help it get to your highest, most powerful self most effortlessly and in the most ease-filled way. So really, when we talk about your energy type and how to master it, we cover all the various sort of behaviors and thought systems and beliefs that are actually holding you back, that you're engaging in, that you're probably conditioned to be doing, how to get rid of those things so that you can kind of float up much more quickly to your real self and find yourself back to who you actually came here to be. And then also, how you're actually supposed to be exchanging energy with the world around you. So what we call that in human design is your strategy. So whether that's waiting to respond, waiting for an invitation, so on and so forth, what does that actually look like, and how do we start to do that more? So it really helps with basically how to get rid of all the things that are not you and how to start to cultivate all the things that you are, so that the way that you manifest on the external plane becomes much more of a sort of instinctive, easy journey that isn't filled with so much stress, so much having to figure everything out, trying to have all the answers. It's much more the idea that when we're really living our design and we're owning the energy type that we are, and only exchanging energy, using our energy, directing our resources towards things that are aligned with our energy type, then actually our work is only 10% of the work. It's only our thoughts that we choose to have, the way that we curate the things that we desire to do or not do, and allowing actually the universe to really come in and help us in terms of the way that it moves mountains behind the scenes, that it sends us synchronicities. You know what it's like, that feeling when you're in your magic lane and things just start sort of happening for you. And really mastering your energy type is the way to engage those kind of unseen forces of the universe to help things happen much more quickly for you and to direct your life in a way that we just can't do ourselves. So it covers who you came to be on a basic level. It covers what your not self behaviors are and the conditioning against your energy type, how to start living it more, and how to follow that strategy. So the second thing with embracing and really living your design is what we call authority. You've maybe heard the saying that it's all about strategy and authority. So strategy is about mastering your energy type, and authority is this idea that every single person inside of us, we have 9 centers inside our chart. Every single person has a different center that's kind of like the MVP of your chart. It's the one that gets to make all the major life decisions. And so, everything in life, in terms of the way that we make changes or that we add to our lives, it comes down to us making a decision about it, whether we want to do it or whether we don't want to do it. And each one of us has a different center that basically gets to make these decisions, that we call to, that we rely on to make these decisions for us and the right decisions for us. So in terms of the way to kind of be back in your power, the way to find that actually the body knows so much better than the mind when it comes to making life decisions. The authority videos are really the ones that will explain to you that this is not really here to make our life decisions. We each will have our emotions or our gut or our intuition, our spleen, our G center, our ego. There's many different combinations, but each one of us has a unique way of making life decisions. And once we begin to recognize that MVP of our chart and start to give it more energy and start to feed it and allow it to take center stage, in front of the mind, then, we create less kind of mental chatter in our heads of the shoulds and the overthinking and all that kind of stuff. And decisions become much more instinctual. They become much more visceral. They become much more natural, for want of a better word, because, when we first came onto this planet, we weren't designed to overthink and to overanalyze and to do any of those things about our own lives. Our brains are basically here to observe the world around us. They're here to absorb information, to come up with theories, to become smarter about the world around us. But in terms of us as human beings, our feelings, wherever they may lie, are much more powerful in providing us with what the right decisions to make, even if we don't necessarily know how those decisions are gonna play out in our lives. So the authority videos are really, if you have any questions about, any area of your life, once you know at least that you're making decisions from the right place, then everything else does tend to sort itself out more, and there is more flow everywhere else in all the different areas of our lives. So once you've eliminated that you're mastering your energy and that you are living according to your strategy, then everything else that is, one of our videos is to do with places where you feel you want to learn more about your chart, places where you want to implement things more in terms of micro areas. So strategy and authority, mastering your energy type and the authority videos, those will be the most impactful for every part of your life. If there's nothing else like you do, like I said, Ra Uru Hu said, if you do nothing but strategy and authority, that already radically changes your life. And I've seen this many, many times over and over again. But obviously, once you want to start to learn more about what your chart is and how to implement that more, if you want to go to the next level of removing all the conditioning that you've been exposed to and how to actually make changes in your life, in the way that you believe things, the thought systems, the heavy conditioning that's still laying upon you, then the deconditioning video is basically what will do that. It's about just under 90-minute video explaining how to actually get rid of conditioning, because we talk so much about conditioning in human design and how that's really holding us back from being our highest, most powerful selves. But we don't often talk enough about the tools about how to actually get rid of the deconditioning and how to lean out of the conditioning that we've been exposed to, in order to shed all those layers that we're kind of holding on top of us, all that heaviness inside our energy body, our aura, so that we can become these kind of clean vessels for the universe to send us all that is authentically meant for us, right? It's like, how do we activate our destiny? How do we activate our biggest dreams and our wishes? Those things are there for a reason. They're going to happen to us. They're meant for us, but we can only receive them, and the receiving actually becomes effortless when we get rid of all that is not us. So the deconditioning video is really about how to get rid of all the things that you're not, so that the becoming all the things that you are is sort of like the effortless side effect of that. So then our purpose videos are basically about, obviously when we talk about purpose, most people think that that's just your job. But your job, as far as the universe is concerned, is whatever your unique skill set is, and as that pertains to every area of your life. So for example, if you understand that in your chart you are a good listener, obviously your job would be needing you to be a good listener, but also your relationships would be needing you to be a good listener. Your kids, your family, your relationship with yourself, the way you learn, the way you interact with the world would all need to be about, or you'd also be needing to use your skill as a good listener in every part of your life. So with the purpose videos, what it talks about is how to share your purpose more, how to get closer to figuring out what it is that you're supposed to be doing, the way you're supposed to go about manifesting it according to your energy type. Because me as a projector would go about making my purpose real, making it manifested so differently than the way that a manifesting generator would, for example. So your purpose is really about, the literal things we want to know about our purpose, which is like finding a job, applying for a job, how do you figure out what you're good at, how to know what you're not good at, how to make it happen, but then also about understanding that your purpose is something that you bring to every area of your life, and that you're really living your purpose when you understand that and integrate that. Then we have a number of options for eating and diet and how we nourish ourselves. The first one is a program called Eating for Your Energy Type. So you have eating for generators, for example. And why food is such an important part of human design is basically that, each one of us, obviously, according to our energy type, has a different way that we exchange energy with the world around us. Food is actually the most concrete source of information that we put into our bodies from the external world. It's much more, it literally makes our cells, right? So it's so much more concrete than information or things that we get mentally stimulated by, or sound or whatever. Food is literally what makes us makes up our bodies. So human design has a lot to say about food and eating. And eating for your energy type is the sort of first thing that we want to understand, because it's about how you actually engage with that food. How do you have a relationship with everything you put inside your body? And that's really different, if you're, for example, a manifestor versus being a reflector. So the eating for your energy type videos are about an hour long on how the right way to eat is, the right way to sleep, the right way to move, all of that kind of stuff. It doesn't tell you specific foods about what you should be eating, but it tells you how to decide which ones are the right ones to eat for your energy type, because there aren't specific, manifesting generators should only eat pineapple and reflectors need to eat papaya, because there's 1% of 7 billion reflectors. They all need slightly individualized things. We all have different lifestyles and preferences that we obviously need to honor as well. But what the eating for your type tells you is how to actually go about deciding that, and how to, really start that conversation with yourself on how to decide what's good and what's not good. How do you do it? How much? How often? Is it good to have a big appetite? Do you have a fast metabolism or a slow metabolism? All the basics, basically. Then we have a program called Digesting Life, and Digesting Life is based on something that we call in human design the primary health system. And what that says is that each one of us has a better and optimized way of digesting life. So digesting food, digesting information, taking in the world around us. Food is obviously, like I said, the most concrete form of that, but we all need to be taking in the external world in a certain way. And there are 12 different ways that we can digest. And then we have 6 senses within us that each of us has a stronger sense with which we need to lead. So, for example, if you have your touch as your strongest sense, then you really want to be using that with the way that you eat your food. You want to be choosing the apple. You want to be holding things. You want to be someone that really goes to the farmers markets and really hold things instead of just ordering things online, for example. So that would explain, for example, why it's maybe not good for you to be ordering your groceries online. So with the digestion, it's actually part 1 of what we call the 4 transformations in human design, because you have digestion, your environment, your perspective, and your motivations. And when you go through all 4 of those, you're really basically living life and seeing life from the point of view and from the place that enables you to get to your most powerful self. So digesting life is really about understanding that, it's about the way you digest food, of course, but it's also about tweaking your situation so that you can take in the world a little bit better, because you were designed to take in the world in a certain way. And when you know what that is, then you can basically eliminate all the situations that don't really serve you, or taking in information that isn't supposed to be the information that you take in, not exposing yourself to unnecessary stuff. And I would say that's so important now more than ever before, because we're bombarded with different information, different food options, different things we're told we should be worrying about, things we're supposed to be exposing ourselves to, social media, all that stuff. And so what Digesting Life does, it really narrows everything for you so that you know your lane, you know your focus. So it tells you, for example, if you're someone who's supposed to eat hot food or cold food, or are you supposed to eat one thing at a time? Are you someone who's a little bit more evolved? Do you have an old digestive system or a newer digestive system, a sensitive one or not? And again, which of the senses you're supposed to be engaging with, which one you kind of lead with, not only in the way that you eat, but also in the way that you go about your career, and what's kind of really honed in you that you do so well. Do you have a strong aesthetic, in which case you'd be, someone who has good outer vision. So that's what Digesting Life goes into, really. And then with our environment videos, which are the second of the 4 transformations, it's about where is good for you physically to be. Why, some people feel like they feel better at the seaside, and other people feel better in smaller places, smaller spaces, larger spaces, exposed to certain bodies of water, or the skyline, or certain high places, low places. It's really fascinating, because when you know your environment and you can set up your environment to really enable you, again, to find that clarity and that simplicity, then your body just does function so much better, and you don't have to think about why you don't feel good, or why you feel sick all the time, or why you feel like certain places just don't resonate with you. It really just allows all that noise to kind of be cut off. So environment is about setting up a space and how we interact with, places where we feel good. We want to always be in places where we feel at home, we feel that there is flow there, that we can just get into doing what we actually are supposed to be doing in this world. So it's really interesting because, there are so many different environmental types, but none of them are, wrong. If you figure out that you're in a place that doesn't serve you so well, you can always kind of tweak it, change it, bring more of that into your life. But it's really so powerful when you know that your space is set up to actually serve you and serve you being in your purpose in this world. And then new paradigm is basically about the fact that if we're alive right now, we're in such an important time in our history, because we're basically switching from one era, one karmic collective cycle, into another one. And that new cycle of the way we do things, the way we operate as human beings, the karma that we all share together, that's all coming in 2027, so it's really soon. And what it does is it's basically heralding a time where we'll be able to change our bodies and our external world just using our minds. There will be less gaps between time, space, and motion. So things will be happening much more quickly. Our thoughts and our actions will have so much more power and effectiveness. Things are going to be sped up to such an incredible level, and the progress and innovation that we're going to be making as individuals, but also as one human race, is just going to be at a level where we can't fathom. But in order to start bringing that in, how can we right now be the early adopters? Basically, how can we start changing things with our minds? How can we start expanding our consciousness to know what is possible, and how can we be the people that herald in this new change? So new paradigm is really about, I talk about things small and large in that video. So it's like, how can you change your cellulite just with your mind? How do you make it go away? Versus, if you are someone who's going to be, inventing something huge for the world, how do we go about that, and how do we make that happen? And how do we prevent all the other things that come in that kind of, right now are the status quo? How do we shift out of that status quo mentality to really bring in a whole new cycle? It also talks about the fact that right now we're in a cycle which is all about keeping people together and togetherness and institutions. The good parts of that we need to keep with us going into the new cycle, versus the old parts, overvaluing sort of dogmatic, pragmatic, consistent, disciplined, all that stuff that maybe we are easing out of, into a cycle that's going to be so much more about the individual, the health of the individual, rather than the health of, an institution or a collective, or doing things in a certain hard way and being much more soft and receptive. So that's all about what the new paradigm video discusses, and that's about a 90-minute video, again, talking about how to, be the early adopters for this change, and how to start to reap the benefits now instead of having to wait until 2027 to get there. And then relationships. That's probably the topic that we get asked about the most. And what's interesting about relationships is that it's such a layered. It's probably more, you can say more about relationships than you can with any other topic. So there's going to be many, many different videos that we will sort of start to offer, as we go along, because there's so many different aspects, and you couldn't cover everything in just, even a couple hours. There is different ways that different energy types engage, but then all the different gates in our chart and how they relate to other people's gates, and why we're attracted to some people and why we're not, and what makes a good relationship, what makes us compatible, what makes us not compatible, how do we navigate both. It's just such an endless rabbit hole. But the very first video is about reframing relationships altogether, because the thing that makes most of our relationships go wrong anyway, even if you had no idea what your chart looked like and someone else's chart looked like, if you reframed relationships in general, that would change everything in your life anyway. Because reframing relationships is the idea that we have so much bad conditioning around what a relationship is, what it should be, what a good behavior is, what are good ways to go about it, what are good ways to be in one, what's good to say, what's good to not say. We know almost too much, that we need to basically strip all that away before we can even get into the specifics of are two projectors good together, and are there, relationships between an MG and a manifestor better than an MG and a generator? And just as a spoiler, there are no energy types that are more compatible with each other or less compatible with each other. It really is so much more about not focusing on how the other person is and are we good together, but more about the fact that if you really show up as your own design and really get rid of all the behaviors that are the bad conditioning in that relationship, then you could almost be in a relationship with so many people and have an amazing relationship. So that's the main kind of first portal that we want to open up, is are you showing up in a relationship according to your design, and do you want to recognize that you have the power to make any good relationship, rather than relying so much on, is this person good for me, and how do I know this, and what are their flaws, and I'm going to leave because I need them to be this and that, and coming from a place of lack and need and unworthiness, and really understanding that the external world is a hologram, and that all the relationships around you will shift or leave or change when you are really understanding that, what we were kind of talking about with purpose, when you show up with the gifts that you're supposed to be having, and none of the codependency, the neediness, the all the sort of unhealthy behaviors, even the idea that we're better sticking together. We have to do everything together. There's certain things that it's good for couples to do together and not do together, and say to each other and not say to each other. All that stuff, that's the stuff that we want to strip away first, because that has the most fundamental impact on the quality of the relationships in your life. And then the human design diet, this is the one that actually talks about what to eat, what we're designed to eat, what's good for us to eat, how do we decide in what quantities and what qualities, dispelling some of the current diet myths that go against what we're actually designed to be eating, and how to realign ourselves with, cultivating this relationship with planet Earth and the things that it has to give us, because everything that the divine has put on this earth for us to eat is the exact same things we're supposed to be eating, and not because of the calories and the nutrients and the macronutrients and all that sort of stuff, but because what human design says is that food is information, that contains a DNA that speaks to our DNA to either help us evolve into our higher self or to hold us back. So that video is really about how do you decide what to eat, how do you decide, what to ignore in terms of current diet culture, what might be working, what is appropriate, what isn't, and how to start deciding, the certain foods, in what quantities, what amounts are the right for us human beings. What is the human design, human diet?